State Senator Judy Schwenk, and like our representatives, Cepeda Freites, I represent the entire city of Reading, plus all of the suburbs around the city. We call those the first ring suburbs, and also some of the rural areas of the county as well. So I've got a bigger district, but we work together on a lot of issues and see a lot of the same kinds of problems. I'm so pleased to see everybody here tonight. You know, we all know gun violence is a major issue, not only in our city, but in our community, but in this entire country. And in fact, in many ways, gun violence is a very uniquely American problem. You don't see things that we sometimes see here in this community and in other countries. And I want you to know that, you know, time and time again, we talk about this issue. Legislators come forward with laws and bills and ideas of what we can do to counteract it, and we don't see anything happen. And that's not just in Harrisburg, but that's also in Washington, D.C. too. And we'll talk a little bit later about what we can do about that. But I want you to know this isn't just about a political issue either. We've had those discussions before, and we've heard all the talking points as well. What we're here tonight is to learn about the days after something happens. What is the impact on families? And it's not just days, it's months, it's years. And the stories that survivors have to tell can be very impactful. And I'm hopeful, and I think a representative is too, that they'll spur us on to action, to be thinking, one, what we can do ourselves, beyond what laws we can pass, but what things we can do and how we can support people in our community. So, with that being said, I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight. We're going to hear some great information for sure. And we will start with a prayer. And Lizette Mendez will be giving us the opening prayer. Lizette?
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment of silence for those who have lost their lives to gun violence. God, our hearts are broken with pain at the senseless deaths caused by the violence amongst our nation. Our disconnection and alienation have caused some to turn to guns for protection and safety. Families mourn, children live in fear, and every day we lose another person to a shooting. Provide us wisdom in order to perceive which situations call for grieving and which situations also call for change. When shootings have become routine, not only in our streets, but also in our schools, we should not pray for just serenity, but also courage. Courage to stand up and let our voices be raised, asking our legislators to enact gun laws to protect all in our society, especially those most vulnerable. Let our pens write messages demanding change while also scripting words of hope and transformation. Help us to transform our own hearts and to seek peaceful ways of resolving our differences. Touch our hearts with your love, heal our brokenness, and turn us away from violence towards peace. And I'm just going to read Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. I'm going to pass the mic to Erica now.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Erica Harris, and I'm going to be explaining the meaning of 23 and why we're all here. So, We're gathered here to bring awareness to something that either affected us personally or we know someone personally who was affected by violence. You'll see some of us are wearing orange and black, which signifies gun violence. Why orange? On January 21st, 2013, Hadia Pendleton marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade. 1 week later, Hadia was shot and killed on a playground in Chicago. Soon after that tragedy, Hadia's friends celebrated her life by wearing orange, the colors hunters wear in the woods to protect themselves and others, so symbolizing a, hey, I'm here, don't shoot me. Wear Orange is now observed every June. Thousands of people wear the color to orange to honor Hadia and everyone affected by gun violence. Violence is such a heavy word, and by definition, it means behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. There are many types of violence, and some violence can involve weapons or just bare hands. Tonight, you will hear the aftermath of survivors of gun violence, domestic violence, violence by mistaken identity, and more importantly, you will hear about the necessary steps on how we can prevent these types of violence. I know a lot of faces on the panel, and my heart sends condolences to all of you as you continue healing. It takes bravery to tell your story to bring awareness, and I want to explain how one brave survivor has turned her pain into purpose in getting this panel together. Shaika had to start a journey of healing after her son Frankie was murdered. She asked why her son, and desperately kept looking for a sign to know that her son was spiritually with her in this aftermath. One day, she was focused on the dates when Frankie was born. He was born on 3/28/2003. If you break it down, you will see a pattern of the 3, the 2, the 2, the 3, which is 23. If you're looking in your program, I'm reading it from the back. Frankie passed on 2/23/21. You'll see the number 23 being repeated. This year, today, Frankie would have turned 21. When Frankie passed, his father picked his prayer card, Psalm 23. Shaika was not present at the time. This is the reading that you just heard Lisette read. Now stay with me. This isn't all just a coincidence. Shaika knew that this had to be a message from Frankie. Shaika then looked at the angel number meaning and came across angel number 23, which translates to, there is a path to find your divine passion. Follow it to the end and make your life count among the holy messengers. This is when Shaika stopped asking why and realized that all along, this was a message from her son, translated to, Mom, don't give up because I'm God. Fight harder for those that are alive. This is why we're here, because through her bravery, she wanted to gather a panel of strong individuals who will fight for those we lost to unnecessary acts of violence. I invite you to lean in and listen to their stories and learn how you can impact generations to come.
Erica, you did a wonderful job of leading us into the next segment of our program here tonight. And that's the stories of the survivors, the folks that you see here at the table tonight. I hope as we listen, we try to understand, to maybe try to put ourselves in their place, to get a sense and be sensitive to the feelings that they have. This is not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be so important for us to hear it. And Roz, we will start with you. Roz Pichardo, will you talk about your story, please? And we'll go down the line.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming and sharing space with us. Some of the things that you're going to hear today may be triggering. And if it is, it's okay to leave the room and to regroup and get yourself together to come back in. Just want to make sure that I put that out there. My name is Rosalind Pichardo, founder and executive director of Operation Save Our City in Philadelphia. I've been impacted by gun violence most of my life. At 16 years old, I survived an attempted homicide by Donald Williams. Donald Williams also murdered my boyfriend, Talbert Jackson. You may see the images already. So this is my boyfriend, Talbert Jackson. And I myself have survived the attempted murder by Donald Williams. This is my brother, Alexander Martinez. He was killed by gun violence in Philadelphia. Case is currently unsolved. And this is him older. This is my identical twin sister, Kathleen Pichardo. She too died by gun violence. Although self-inflicted, policy and legislation allowed her to go into a gun store. After being released from a mental facility, was able to purchase a firearm, and she ultimately took her life. We talk about this pain and we talk about all this, but what we don't talk about is the ripple effect of gun violence. This is my dad. He's not with us either. A year after my brother's murder, my dad, who a lot of times men are told they can't cry, they can't grieve. The way my dad dealt with his grief was, I want to go to sleep and I don't want to wake up. Every day he would say this, until one day he went to sleep and he didn't wake up. Let's talk about the ripple effect of gun violence and how it affects others. Donald Williams, the person who attempted to take my life and murdered Talver Jackson, was also responsible for the murder of someone else after only serving 15 years in prison. Only serving 15 years in prison. Now, ironically, the person that he murdered, the brother is here. So, I'm sorry, the son, I'm sorry. The son is here. And also, ironically, when I talk about these things, all of these things are connected. You know, when someone is serving time in prison, we should be allowed access to voice our opinions whether that person should be released or whether we feel that person has changed. Because I could tell you, if I would have sat across in front of the probation hearing, I would have felt incensed that person should have been let out. So my call to action, my personal call to action to you is to reach out to those legislators who are voting no on certain policies that will protect us. Call your legislators and say, hey, you need to vote for common sense gun laws. Call them. Go to Harrisburg, protest, because all these lives right here mattered, and they took them away from us. Thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing space.
Hello, everybody. My name is Louis Serrano, and like Roz said, the man who ruined her life also ruined mine. When it was time for him to get out of jail, my mom fought tooth and nail to get him out and let him live with her at her home. And when that day came, I'm going to be completely honest, he was a good guy. He was pretty quiet, but I seen how he was with my children. I seen how he was with my mom. And there was no triggers at all. And it came the time where this is hard, man. This is so hard. You only have one mom, and I don't got her anymore. She's not here anymore. So when I speak about her, I tend to get a little choked up, cry a little bit. But that, in the end, I'll be all right. Don't worry about it. At the end of this speech, I'll be good. Yeah, wouldn't get a job. He was just around the house, not doing anything. So she basically gave him an ultimatum. And he didn't accept it. So she ended up breaking up with him and telling him to leave the house. Scared for her life, she changed the locks of the house. And I guess one day he came to visit and seen that the doors were locked. So he went around the back of the house, doors were locked. He proceeded to punch through the basement window and undid the deadbolt and came in, broke into my mother's house. He knew her routine. He knew her morning routine. So I guess he must have heard the shower on upstairs and proceeded to go upstairs. This is where it gets hard. He yanks her out the shower. He throws her on her bed and proceeds to rape her. And tell her if she screams that he'll kill her. So after he got done doing what he was doing, he dragged her downstairs to the basement and tied her up, threw gasoline on her and lit her on fire. My mom had enough strength to run upstairs, run out of the house, stop, drop, and roll in the front lawn and knock on her neighbor's door. The neighbor couldn't speak English, so she was telling her to call 911. Neighbor called 911 and handed the phone over to my mom. I said this before, you could not hire a Hollywood actress to do what my mom did that morning. She picked up the phone and not dialed 911, she talked to the 911 operator and kept yelling, I'm on fire, please help. So, ambulance, firefighters, investigators, police, all showed up to my mother's house. They put her on a gurney, put her in the ambulance, and drove her to Dana Corporation parking lot, where they medevaced her to Lehigh Valley Hospital, because that's the closest burn unit here in Berks County. And I got the phone call from the neighbor. I was at work, and she said, come to the house, come to your mom's house, she's on fire. I'm thinking, her house is on fire. Well, when I get there to my mother's house, Detective Mike Mullen pulled me to the side and told me that my mom was hurt. They just took her to Lehigh Valley Hospital, and I wanted to leave, jump in my truck and leave and go up to the hospital, but he said, take your time. He's like, they're gonna treat her and they're going to take care of her. It's gonna be a couple hours. So once I gathered all the information and they told me to go up to Lehigh Valley Hospital, when I got there, the doctors and the nurses greeted me and told me what was going on. And I just kept thinking to myself, how can somebody hurt my mom? She's an angel. She will take the shirt off her back and give it to anybody. So the doctors explained to me what was going on. And he said, call your relatives and tell them to come up. Then you can be the one to explain to them what's happening, because we'll be in the back tending to your mom. So fast forward, I basically left work, drove to the Lehigh Valley Hospital every day for 45 days. And this happened on June 25th, 2009. And August 8th was the day that my mom passed away. She passed away due to ARDS, which stands for Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome. And that's when you inhale flames and your lungs get so hard that you can't breathe. it's like almost trying to breathe through a coffee straw. So at 2:07 on August 8th, 2009, my mother passed away. And I promised myself every day, I'm gonna keep my mom's legacy alive. Every day, I'm gonna tell someone about my mother. Because like I said, she was an angel, man. She was my best friend. And I loved her so much. She was loved by everybody. And when I tell you that, that's the truth. Everybody loved my mom. She was wild and crazy, but everybody loved her. And that's where I get that from. But I just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking your time to listen to everybody's story that you're about to hear. And when you speak about someone you love, it comes from the heart. Sorry. And my mom was my heart. My mom was my heart. So, if your mother is still alive, make sure you call her, text her, go to her house, give her a big hug. Make sure you tell your mom you love her every day, because some of us cannot do that. God bless you all, and have a good rest of your night. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Mayra Rama. I'm talking on behalf of the West family. On behalf of Kathy West, the mother of Barbie West Torres, who was shot and killed September 12, 2005. And it took until March 15, 2013, when her husband, Miguel Torres, was found in another country because he was on America's Most Wanted. And in 2016, he was convicted of murder. Ironically, I was working that day in a courthouse when all this happened, but God had me to go somewhere else and not walk by the incident that I potentially would have witnessed and not probably been able to talk about it today. But I'm just going to quickly read something I wrote down because it's hard for me to speak in public, so this is just for Kathy and her family. Every year, there are 2 days that remind the family of a heartbreaking event. Again, for September 12, 2005. That day, Barbie was taken away from us due to gun violence. And it does not get easier to remember or forget this incident, especially on her birthday and the day she was taken away from us. This past October, she would have been 50. Holidays are not any easier, and of course, Mother's Day is worse for Kathy. Barbie was a happy, intelligent, and welcoming person who lived in silence about her problems that she had at home, the violence. Unfortunately, by that time, she started to let people know what was going on in her life. Things were already spiraling out of control. She finally was strong enough to get out of her situation and continue to go to work, come back home with her family and friends. But then one day, she didn't return. And it took a few seconds to take away her life due to gun violence. That day would be permanently embedded in the family and friends' heads. A scar that will never go away, the suffering that never goes away. Barbie's spirit is still with us. Her laughter, her hugs, the older sister advice, the doting on, or the loving quality time she would have with her mother will no longer be there. We hope and pray that others will not have to endure this pain. We hope and pray there's a better solution on how to handle guns and for less gun violence. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Leandra Feliz. It's very hard to be here talking about this, but I hope this brings some make changes in the law for the future if it's happening to anybody. My son, Lisandro Junior Guzman Feliz, he was only 15 years old. He had a dream, he was good kid, He was innocent kid, and he willing to be a cop, a police department. He was at the time when my tragedy happened. He was at the Explorer program at the 45 prison in the Bronx, New York. So one night, 15 gang members, they all attacked my son with all type of weapons. They stabbing until they kill him, all of them together at the same time. So I've been fighting since the day to today because I'm willing to have in the future, if we can make it come all everybody together to make any changes in the law for the future for all type of crime like gun violence, gang members, because the law actually is working more in the favor to the criminal than the victims, than us. My son is 15 years old. He was an innocent kid. My son never gonna come back. They all are in jail right now, but they sentences, the 50 men in different levels because they all have different roles. Some of them have weapons, others driving cars, others sitting in the car, others chasing him. That's why the law, it was different for all of them. But at the time when they killed him, they all have the same intention to kill him, to kill somebody, because they was following order for their bosses. You know, and they got the bosses, the big boss of the band member arresting too. They give him 25 to life, to 5 of them, and they give him life in prison without parole for the one who finally stabbed him in the neck and killed him. The stab was with the last staff. This guy now, happening, they throw out the charges on the first murder degree, and they lowered to the second degree, actually, right now. So he has to be resentenced because a lot of issues that his lawyer fighting, and they went to the high court, and the court threw out the charges. I'm here together to help everybody, and I need help for myself to bring new law for those type of criminals. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. In my case, I'm on both sides of the water. I have a son that was murdered February 23rd, 2021. And my other son was just recently convicted of murder and sentenced to 85 years of his life. February 23rd, 2021. I called my son's phone at 10:30 in the morning, and he didn't answer me. So I called his girlfriend's phone. She answered, and I said, "Hey, come down. I'm cooking your favorite meal." She had to go to work. So as we were going, through the conversation, I remember him screaming at her, "Hey, that's my mom." And she started laughing, and she hung up. They came over, He felt really accomplished. He came in super happy. He had bought 3 gallons of milk. And that was his accomplishment, because it was for a 2-year-old baby. That wasn't his. He hugged me and kissed me and said, "Hey, Mom, you don't love her more than me." I said, "Absolutely not, silly." She went to work, and he stayed with the baby. And we laughed. I actually tried to get him, I wanted him to apply for his permit. But because his story started with a car, he didn't want to go for his permit. He said, "Mommy, there's Uber and Lyft." So, okay. We laughed, I cooked. We planned his 18th birthday. He told me he wanted to go to Temp Start to apply for his job, because then he was going to be a man. $5:30 came. And I was leaving to Philly. I came out. I said to him, "Hey, why don't you just go with me?" He didn't want to go because he didn't have a car seat for the baby. So he said, "No, Mom, I'm not going. I'm staying here." Okay. Said, "Hey, kiddo, I love you." And he said, "I love you more." I closed the door, but something in my heart just didn't want to let go of my son that day. Just didn't want to let go. I wanted him to go with me, and I just didn't understand what I felt inside of me. I closed the door. I opened it again. I closed it again. And I finally said to him, "You are my what?" And he answered, "Your sunshine." That was at 5:30 in the afternoon. After that, I'm coming back from Philly, and I get a phone call from his girlfriend. And she says to me, "You have to hurry up and come home. Something happened." And my heart just dropped. I knew it wasn't good. So I started calling little Frankie. And I called him, and I called him, and I called him, and he wouldn't answer. And I called him, and I left him messages, and I kept telling him, "I'm going to kick your ass. If I don't find you, I'm going to kick your ass." I got to the house, and I saw the yellow tape, and I see blood. I see everything, and my legs wouldn't move. I just felt like I had cinder blocks in my legs. I knew there was a body, but I didn't want to believe that it was him. So I just stood in front of the door, waiting and waiting and waiting, and people talking, and I kept on waiting, and people talking, and I just kept waiting. I see people coming out of the house, and I just wouldn't see him. So I kept on calling him, but he never answered. I saw the coroner's car. I saw the bag. And I see when they put the bag inside the van. So I ran to a car. I just drove back down to City Hall. And it's like the longest wait never ending. I remember that officer coming in and asking me, does he have anything that you can identify him? And I said, he has my name on his arm. And clearly I don't have the most unique name. Super difficult. So I said to him, it's on his arm. My face is on his arm. He walked in once, twice, 3 times. And the 3rd time when they said, I'm sorry, ma'am. That's all I heard. I remember grabbing the chair, throwing it, screaming, saying no, wanting to leave, wanting to run, but it didn't happen, none of it. I just cried. We fast forward. October 31st, 2022. I'm going into 9th Street McDonald's. Unfortunately, my light in my car was out and I got stopped because of that. But as I was stopped, cops were already running to the car. FBI was already running. Everyone was running. I had a gun put to the front of my head, 1 to the back of my head, 1 to the side, 1 that clocked on my son's head, and 2 to the other side. They're trying to pull him out of the car. I'm screaming, that's my son, don't kill him, that's my son, don't kill him. I had no idea what the heck was going on until we got to City Hall. I still didn't know much until I sat down in a courtroom and listened to the stories. This is our city. This is what we go through. This is what we live. No side is easier than the other. I know both pains. I know what it is. I'm not just a mother to a murderer. I'm a mother that lost her child too. And if we sat here today, it was because I wanted to bring that message. I'm not the only one. There's many of us out there. Many of us that don't speak our pain. We get judged as parents. We get judged as son, brother, sister. Everyone judges. But no one knows what it is. No one knows what we suffer. No one looks at us and says, are you okay? If we don't join forces, if we don't reach out to our legislation, if we don't ask our new chief to give us a plan, what is he gonna do for us? How are we gonna be safe? I have faith in you. I have faith in what you're gonna do for our city. But I hope that each and every one of you sitting here take accountability, make a change, listen to us, come out, come together, join us. One person cannot do it. We need all, everyone, to help us get there. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Shaka, words fail me, all of you. You could hear a pin drop in here. I occasionally took my eyes off of all of you to look at our audience, which has grown since we sat down, of people hearing your stories. It's hard to even comprehend what all of you have gone through. And to know that, that you did this, that you had the courage to do it, And it opens wounds that really haven't healed, right? It's still a big, it will be always a big part of your lives and ours now too, as you've told us your stories. And now is the time that we can start asking some questions of you, this panel. We'll do this panel first. And we have, I think we have some note cards that were passed around. Did people get them? Or we can raise our hands if we didn't do that? Or do you want to wait till later to get started on that? All right. Be thinking, please. We'll pass out those cards. And be thinking of questions that you'd like to ask all of our panelists as we go forward with our program. And I'll turn this over to you now, Representative.
Thank you, Senator. I want to thank each and every one of our survivors for your courage, your bravery, for turning your pain into purpose, for sharing in the space with us, and for holding all of us accountable. And, I remember the nights following the loss of Shaika's son, because Shaika and I were friends, and I remember our children going to pizza parties together. My son, every time, when I look at my son, I think about her son, the curly hair. And I remember that night on the block, and thank you to our men in blue who were there, keeping us all safe while we were mourning and grieving. And at that time, I was on Reading City Council, and I felt like such a failure. I'm like, what can I do in my role to really create the necessary change? I felt like I failed you as I failed many others in that role and in that capacity. And I'm like, we have to do more. And we started doing groups in various parts of the community and bringing people together just to build awareness and really to empower and task each and every one of you, because it's all our responsibility. This is our community and we're in this together. And if we don't own up and realize the power that we possess as individuals and as a collective, nothing's going to change. Because it's not on our police department exclusively, right? It's on each and every one of us. And I want to share furthermore, that when the opportunity presented itself for me to run for state office, I said, Shaika, what do you think? She's like, well, why not? And I'm like, well, maybe in that role, I can affect change in laws, right? And the laws that govern how we operate at the state level. And when she talks about the number 23, because there is symbolism, and she made me aware of this, when you go and you see my seat number on the floor in the chamber of the House in our Capitol building, the number on my seat is the number 23. I just got a vehicle recently. The number 23 is on my license plate. She was like, Johanny, and I'm just like, so that number 23, and I get the chills because I'm just like, wow. God has a way of working, and we're all put in these circumstances and in these places for a purpose. And I task you again, find your purpose, because we can effectuate change. It's on us. And I want to thank you, Chaika. Oh, she has the picture. Because she also, through her story and her loss, as many of others have had, I have found a purpose, and and we want to keep fighting as legislators to effectuate the change. So at this time, I'm going to now introduce or pass it to the next portion of our panel for our town hall, because obviously there is an aftermath. What happens after, and what resources are there to help us heal and go through our trauma. So I'm going to pass it to the next section of our panelists, which are working in the mental health space, and then they will follow that up by our law enforcement, because they are our partners in this, remember? They're partners. They're our friends. They're here to protect and serve, to work with us, not against us. So I'm going to take this moment and pass it to Ms. Hilary Aponte. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how we can help our survivors heal and make a difference.
As we transition to this next part of the evening, first I wanted to invite everyone to participate in a mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness are skills used in order to gain awareness of our emotions and also learn to accept them. developing these skills, they can help better manage your reactions to situations that may be causing you some distress. So I would like everyone to participate. So let's get to it. If you're seated, please sit in your chair, settle in your position. Bring your feet flat to the floor. Whatever position you're in, try to sit with a straight spine and maybe tucking your chin in slightly. So it feels like a nice long line from the base of your skull to your tailbone. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Release your jaw. Let your shoulders drop and relax. I'll guide you through 3 deep breaths. So please inhale. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Pause. Hold the air in your lungs for 4 seconds. Then exhale. Breathe out slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. Let's repeat that. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Deep breathing can help release anything that you're holding on to. As you continue deep breathing, I will say a few affirmations, and all you have to do is just breathe. We are not alone. The aftermath of gun violence is challenging and complicated for all of us. We are worthy of this time to continue in our healing journey. We are doing our best. If you would like to bring your hands to your belly or to your chest, to give yourself touch, because you deserve that comfort. We are deserving of kindness and care. We are here to help take care of ourselves, and that shows amazing strength. Take a few more deep breaths. And when you feel ready, flutter your eyes open. Wiggle your toes, your fingers. If you need to stretch, you can do so. And when you're ready, you can rejoin the group. Good evening. My name is Hilary Aponte Chamelis, and I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Pennsylvania. I have a private practice called Emotional Compass, where we provide individual counseling, family counseling, couples, and perinatal counseling. So what I will be discussing today is a little bit about trauma and how it affects our bodies. So some key points that I'm going to be touching on today are trauma, some common experiences and reactions to trauma, and ways that we can manage them, manage that distress. So I want to share a little story before I get into the trauma piece, something that I've never shared with anyone before outside of my family circle. I've also been impacted by gun violence. On June 2014, my cousin was murdered in New York, Bronx, New York, right on Kingsbridge and University Avenue. I remember my cousin, his sister, calling me around 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was asleep, so I didn't see it until I woke up later on that morning. And I thought to myself, why is she calling me so late? She never calls me this late. What's going on? And as soon as I said those things, I felt a pit in my stomach. Like something was wrong. So I proceeded to call my cousin, and she was crying hysterically on the other line. And that's when she told me that her brother and my cousin had been shot. I practiced this all day and didn't cry, and now I cry. The aftermath of gun violence is very impactful. And you never expect for something like this to happen. Not so close to home. Not in your circle, not in your family, not in your community. But we don't understand why these things are happening. You know, when we talk about trauma and how it affects our bodies, trauma is a response following an event that has impacted us. Whether you have been impacted by trauma directly, witnessing it, hearing about it, it can still leave long-lasting effects if it's left unchecked. Not everyone who experiences a traumatic event will develop PTSD, but around 20% of individuals do get that diagnosis. And there's a lot of criteria that falls under that you have to meet in order to have that diagnosis. And then there's also complex trauma when it occurs repeatedly, when a traumatic event occurs repeatedly. That can definitely leave an imprint in your view of the world, how you feel about yourself, and your relationships with others. Gun violence can cause intense feelings like fear, anger, helplessness. Constantly worrying about safety of our loved ones can also have a significant impact on our well-being. It is typical to experience a variety of emotions, feeling discouraged, fear, anger, grief, among many others. It can also affect your ability to sleep, difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. It can affect your eating habits. It can also be so difficult to do even the simplest daily tasks. When we talk about common responses to trauma, there are four main categories. Of reactions that many people experience after a traumatic event. The first one being re-experiencing trauma. So having nightmares related to the trauma. Flashbacks, vivid images, re-experiencing it, feeling like it's happening again. Distressing thoughts and feelings about the trauma. Emotional distress or physical responses after experiencing a trauma. So essentially like being reminded of it, being triggered by it. The next category is avoidance. Because reminders are so difficult to handle sometimes, and it's out of our control when those reminders happen, it is common for survivors to want to avoid. And some people may cope with drugs and alcohol to not feel the pain. Avoiding activities related to the trauma. avoiding people, places, or things. And also avoiding conversations about it. And avoiding isn't really doing anything. It's a temporary relief. The next category is negative thoughts or feelings. And this can get worse after experiencing a trauma, and sometimes it may seem it's unrelated to the event as well. So you have things like excessive blaming towards ourselves or others, loss of interest in activities and things that you typically would enjoy, which is a symptom of depression. Feeling isolated or disconnected from your loved ones. Difficulty experiencing positive feelings. Loss of memory related to the trauma, so difficulty recalling crucial aspects of the event. And having excessive negative thoughts about yourself and the world. Then the last category is hyperarousal, feeling like on edge. And these are also very similar to symptoms of anxiety and depression. You have irritability, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, frequently scanning your environment and watching out for trauma reminders, feeling anxious, racing heartbeat, upset stomach, headaches, and also risky and impulsive behaviors. So now that we're aware of all the things, all these emotions that we can experience after a traumatic event, now what? What do we do with all these emotions? One way that you can work on that is by asking for support. Asking for support from people who care about you, who can listen to you. And this could be a family member, friends, even a therapist. Receiving support can be very comforting and reassuring that you will get through it. A lot of times people think that brushing things under the rug or staying super busy, again, the avoidance, trying to avoid the conversation, trying to avoid the feeling, trying to avoid processing. That's only temporary. And as you continue to avoid, those emotions get bigger and bigger. And there are times where individuals do get stuck. And it's difficult to work through them. It's difficult, and it's so intense. And that's where I would suggest going to a therapist, where you have someone that can help you, guide you, and utilize interventions and different modalities tailored to your needs. Because there's no one size fits all when it comes to grief or trauma. And then the last thing is grounding exercises. The mindfulness that we did a little bit ago. Any feedback on the mindfulness? You guys were super relaxed. So mindfulness can be helpful in managing our emotions and coping with stress, among many other benefits. So instead of allowing your emotions to lead a situation, mindfulness kind of makes you stop, pause, breathe, think about it, and then go. So as I conclude my piece, and I pass it over to Dr. Ramona, I just want to say that everyone's experience is unique. There's no one size fits all. Healing from trauma is possible if you have the right support and the right treatment. understanding that healing takes time and there's no expiration date. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Ramona Roberts. I am a licensed psychologist. I'm a trauma specialist, and I'm the Senior Executive Director of Karen Outpatient Treatment Center in Wyomissing. I will say, Hillary doing the mindfulness exercise, I heard someone in the audience here say perfect timing. And I think Roz started us out, with a caution. Some of us in the room might need a moment. Take a moment, step outside if you need. This will be heavy stuff. And I know for me, that mindfulness exercise was needed too. I don't know about all of you in here, but I would bet that there's a lot of nervous systems right now that are a little dysregulated. There's a little lump in the throat, heat in your body, tension in your stomach. I felt it too. I think, Representative Johanny said that something about turning this into purpose. And I think a lot of us that get into the field, not everyone gets into the field because they have experience with something, but I think a lot of us have experience with something that gives you grief, that gives you loss. When Lewis was talking about this, his experience with his mom, I did not expect to even have my own response come up from something that happened 25 years ago, where actually my cousin was murdered by being set on fire. And I had not felt that heat in years until I heard Lewis speak. We treat at Karen Outpatient, we for many, many years, 3 decades, have treated substance use in Wyomissing. But as Hillary mentioned, so much substance use is coming from trying to self-medicate from trauma. In this room right now, we have about 90% of you have experienced some trauma, whether that's gun violence, sexual assault, neglect, loss, ambiguous loss, where maybe you have a loved one who's incarcerated, who's in a mental health institution. I know that pain. And trauma changes the brain. And what I really hope all of you can hear, those of you that are really struggling, is that healing does too. Healing changes the brain. And so when Hillary said seek out support, some of that might be friends, family, pastor, rabbi, therapist. What I really hope is that we can cut down the stigma around what it's like to experience trauma and then to have the after effect of it. So she mentioned 20%, depending on where you look, 20, 25, 30% of people who experience it go on to have PTSD. It doesn't mean that those who don't get that diagnosis were unaffected. Let me also make sure I land this line too, that this room, I'm sure, is filled with resilience. This table alone, filled with resilience. And resilience does not mean unaffected. It is not weakness that brings you into my therapy office, Hillary's therapy office, anyone else's. It is strength. It is courage. So many people come and present to people like us and say they believe they're weak because of all the symptoms that she rattled off. I once had a patient, when I assigned the diagnosis of PTSD, and I don't just, check off a box and say, well, you have PTSD, let's go on about the business. I have conversation around it. But when we got to that conversation, she said to me, take it back. There was so much that had been instilled in her about what it meant to have PTSD that she wanted me to erase the diagnosis because it meant she was weak. It meant she wasn't strong enough to handle what was dished out to her. There's a lot of pain in this room. And there's a lot of joy. We heard some really painful stories, And we had some laughter, right? As the memories come back up, as we share a moment that is stamped in their life for good. And there is healing that can come through all this. Purpose, not having losing these people in vain, not having their loss be in vain. I want to share something that someone said to me, someone who's here tonight said to me, because one of my biggest kind of shticks I run with is compassion. Self-compassion, or maybe it's the compassion you need to start providing to your loved one who is struggling in the aftermath of trauma. And when I say compassion, I mean, we really want to acknowledge what's happening inside us, acknowledge the emotions, acknowledge the cognitions without judgment. So I'm going to read the quote, I wrote it down that someone shared with me. They said, managing court, keeping their family together, being strong for their son who is actually incarcerated. It's really hard when you're trying to hold everything together, have your career, your job, put food on the table, right? When we talk about self-care, some of you might roll your eyes. What do you mean self-care? That's selfish, right? Well, why do they tell you on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on children? Okay? This person says to me, I do know I'm wrong, but this is how I've been able to function throughout my journey. And this person explained that what they do to function is they dive into work. Hillary's avoidance that she talked about, right? Diving into work. I know a lot of us can relate to that. And where I wanted to point out is the part where they said, I do know I'm wrong. Now, although we want to help people stop the avoidance, there's a reason why the avoidance is there. There's fear, right? There's fear of, am I going to unravel to the point where I can't even stop if I let this out with somebody? If I recognize for the moment, if I stop and just freeze for a moment and try and process what's happened, am I going to be able to make it out of that? There's a lot of fear in that. Avoidance does keep us stuck. However, there are parts of us that step forward and try and help us survive. And I think for even all the symptoms, we call them in our field maladaptive. I don't like the word because I actually think they're very adaptive. They help people survive in a time when they need it. Now, over time, they become something that brings on other consequences, right? Avoidance comes out sideways. But at the same time, we want to have almost a nurturance for the part inside us that is showing up to try and help us live. For that part that's saying, hey, so-and-so, go to work. I need you to stay put together right now. I just want to take the judgment out, the self-judgment, right? The statements of if this, then. If I had only done this, then this wouldn't have happened. Who gave us that crystal ball? What's happening is we're looking in hindsight bias. Because now we know what happened. We do the best we can with the information we have at the moment we have it, right? There's an example I like to give. I got a water bottle here. If I asked you all, how heavy is this? I don't know, maybe some of you can shout out an answer to me. How heavy is this water? I like this young man over here raised his hand, yeah.
2 pounds?
What did he say?
2 pounds.
2 pounds, very good guess. I don't know what this 16.9 fluid ounces. I had another hand. Did you have a hand up? No. Another hand? With the hat. 16 ounces. 1 pound. Half a pound. All right, because look, I took some sips out of it too, so some of you are probably trying to do the math. Anyone have another answer that doesn't have a number to it? Here with the hat in the front? Not that heavy. Well, you know what? I actually got a bum shoulder. I tore my rotator cuff. So I'm starting to get some pain here now as I'm holding it. Where I'm going with this, Jamie.
As heavy as you perceive it to be.
As heavy as I perceive it, I like it. You're getting there for me. I got a hand up here.
can hold, depending on the condition of the arm. So if it's a weak arm, it's going to be very heavy.
Thank you.
Strong arm, it's going to be very light.
I like that answer, and I'll take one last one at the top.
It's as long as you want to hold on to it.
Thank you. The weight of this glass depends on how long I'm holding it. You carry this for 20 years, right? No matter what your strength is in the arm. You know, when Hillary says seek out help, if I can just encourage you, take all that's been instilled in you about what it means to be experiencing trauma and just put it aside and try and just have that courage to find somebody like us. Or if you don't even, you know, if you're a little nervous in trusting therapists, find your clergyman, find your family member. I think there's a real collective experience happening in this room, right?
Amen.
We've got to be in this together. Thank you.
All right, I don't know how to follow that up. I'll try, but you saved the worst for last. My name's Chief Eli Vasquez. I've been here not even 2 months yet, but I love the city already. Great police department. I have a great staff. First, I just want to say I want to give my condolences to all the parents, the mothers, fathers, daughters, sons that experienced this trauma. I'm just speechless for the stories that I've heard today, but nonetheless, I'm glad to be here and be part of this. Just wanted to kind of introduce my staff, some of my staff. We have Deputy Chief Javier Ruz right here in the front. I think everybody knows Javi. We have Lieutenant Luz Shade here, who's my executive assistant. And then to my right, we have Sergeant Mel Fegley, who's the community engagement sergeant. So I guess I get to share a little boring stuff for you, but it goes along the lines of what Shaka said, as far as a plan, a strategy to fight crime. This is what I thought of, in Tampa, with the command staff over there. We were able to reduce crime for about 76% over the last 17 years using this strategy that I'm doing here. And this is just a small portion of what I intend to implement, and then we are already implementing. I just want to give you basically a synopsis, a snapshot of crime here, and what we're doing and who we're collaborating with. So for 2023, we've had 44 gun-related incidents with 50 victims. 9 were self-inflicted or accidental, and not all of them obviously died. Violent crime has gone down in the city. For instance, homicide has gone down 17%. Ag assaults have gone down 16%. And then robberies have gone down 7% as well. Obviously, guns are an issue throughout the United States. It's already been said here. We have many laws. Unfortunately, a lot of offenders don't obey those laws. So we do what we can to, as far as the police department, to work within those laws, obviously, and target a small percentage of offenders that commit most of the crime. Most folks don't know that only 6% thereabouts of offenders commit about 70 to 80% of the crime. So that's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with rampant crime throughout the whole city and there's just offenders in every single block. It's not like that. It's not like that in the United States. And that's a proven fact. So some of the strategies that we use are a data-driven approach, intelligence sharing amongst ourselves within the police department, but also with other agencies as well. We do what I call, and what I did in Tampa, pinpoint policing. That's focusing on that small group of offenders, because when you start sending your officers out there and just, here, go do whatever you want, then you start getting into the problem of over-policing, and we don't want to get to that. We've seen what has happened throughout the nation in neighborhoods and cities that have done that kind of stuff, so we're not doing that here. We also, what we have called a ComStat meeting. That's using that intelligence that we've gathered throughout the month, and we compare month to month. We have meetings about where the actual crimes are happening and what we're doing to address those crimes, and actually who the offenders are that are committing those crimes. So we focus on those repeat offenders, and that's the biggest focus that we're going to have in Reading going forward. So we use the best practices in fighting crime throughout the nation. One of the things that we did in Tampa, and I'll say Tampa a lot because that's where I came from, but we surveyed all the different agencies throughout the nation, and whatever practices that they were using that we thought would best suit our city, that's what we use, and that's kind of the same thing that what we're doing here in the city of Reading. We work with our partners. Obviously, we collaborate with the district attorney's office. They have some great investigators. Likewise, we're also collaborating with the county probation and the state probation as well. We have different operations that we do with them. One of them is called Operation Nightlight, where we patrol officers go with county probation officers out and do home checks on folks that are on probation. Recently, we're also working with the schools, and recently what I did to intel share with the schools is I added Mr. Carl Britt, who is the head of security in the school system. He is now coming to my staff meetings every Thursday. We meet weekly, and we discuss different things that we need to discuss to help reduce crime within the schools as well. We're using patrol, traffic, the SROs, exchanging information on a constant basis, and we're using patrol mostly to help supplement the SROs that are working in the schools with the traffic issue on the ingress and egress of school to avert any kind of issues there. Just wanted to give you a couple results on some operations that we've done. We have an operation called Neighborhood Gun Detail that started in 2023, and thus far we've gotten 123 guns off the street and made actually multiple arrests on that as well. We also have another operation called Operation Ceasefire that started in 2021 and is still continuing. We got 141 guns off the street, which is fantastic. And then in addition to that, we also have narcotics investigations that we do. Starting from 2021 to 2024 this year, where we started taking note of how many guns we were taking off the street. We had also 104 guns taken off the street. And we're going to continue doing those operations from this point forward until we get all the guns off the street, because that's the ultimate goal. So additional measures, obviously I've already mentioned, we work with the SROs. We've averted many issues in the schools, working with the intelligence that they have on potential issues that happens either before or after school. We're currently putting in place a youth prevention group with several leaders throughout the community to mentor and to talk to kids that are sort of kind of going astray, and we're gonna actually do that May 6th. So we're working on the planning phase of that. We obviously work with the Reading Police Youth Academy. That's sponsored by the Olivet Boys and Girls Club, and it's going very well. They meet every week, and we go out there and we also help teach different topics there in the academy, and the whole point is to give them an opportunity to maybe seek a career in law enforcement, or just to take them off the streets. We're also working with Parks and Recs and different events that they do. I know Dr. Claire here, is very busy with those programs, and we try to get as involved as we can. So to fund a lot of these things, a lot of the overtime that the officers have to work, we use the JAG grant, the PCCD grants, and the COP grants, whatever grants we can to provide the money for the overtime that we work in these operations. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We do everything that we can to work with the community. It's all about an effort that we all put forth together. We can't, like it was said, we can't do it ourselves. And we need all of you to be the eyes and ears of the police department and work with us to help make this a safer city. So thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Sergeant Noah Fegley. Again, I want to, Shaika, we've talked several times. It's difficult to follow that up, that you can't imagine that pain. You wouldn't want to imagine that pain, and you almost feel guilty thinking, God, that you don't know that pain. It's an awful feeling, and it's hard to relate. From the police department point of view, gun violence affects us also. We've lost a few officers in the last few years, not just to criminal acts, but to suicide too. So we do understand that. It's family in a different respect, but it's awful, and I wish that no one would have to deal with it. We're here today mostly about gun violence because that's the most traumatic, and it's just the easiest way to take care of a lot of immediate violence. Violence is, we had violence in the world before there were weapons. There's just evil out there. The chief and I were talking before we came in tonight. What makes all this difficult is, yes, we can come up with laws and we can enforce laws, and you can create new laws and different ways to try and enforce laws, but you can't stop what's in a man's heart. If he intends to commit some evil, that's gonna happen. And we can try and get ahead of the curve by collecting intelligence and targeting certain areas and just making it difficult and being more aware. But really what this comes down to is life's about relationships. We will only know if we are getting intelligence from the community. I was thinking about this earlier. In the city of Reading, we have about 100,000 residents, 100,000. We have, at the most we can have is 175 police officers, but really we're at 150. That's not 10%, that's not even 1%. That's a little more than 0.1%. So that's 99.9% of the residents we're trying to protect and serve with a little more than 0.1%. There is no way we can follow up on all the things that happen, the crashes and regular investigations and frauds and violent crime, and try to prevent stuff too, just by ourselves. There has to be a buy-in. There has to be relationships with us in the community. That being said, we have to look out for each other. You guys know what's going on in your block. You guys know who's running with who. We talked about courage and bravery. We need more men and women to step up and say something, get involved. We are constantly trying to recruit more police officers, and especially ones that are born and raised in this city. Nobody knows the city better than city residents. We need more people to step up. And it's more than just laws and more than just the execution of these laws and apprehension of criminals. It's people getting involved in other people's lives, asking questions, and caring about the person next to you. I know we're kind of short on time, and we wanted to open it up to question and answers, right? Yep.
So I don't know if anyone circulated any questions that you have from the audience, but we prepared some questions as well to ask. But
I have questions. I have two. The first one is for the legislators. So what specific legislative advocacy efforts do you believe are most critical to improving laws surrounding violence against women, children, and gun violence? It seems, from a community perspective, hearing like Leandra saying, the laws are benefiting, to the benefit of those that are committing the crimes, not necessarily the victims. So that's the one question. And the other question I have is for the mental health professionals. So as a community leader, I have people that will come to me with situations, traumas that they've encountered, and I am not a mental health professional, right? So I'm trying to figure out if there are any strategies or resources for those of us in the community that encounter folks to help get them to where they may not be so open to going directly to you, but if they have somebody like myself to help them walk that path, what is out there?
One resource that I recommend is psychologytoday.com. That website, you can filter therapists, psychiatrists, groups. You can find anything related to mental health on that website. You can filter it by location, by what type of insurance you have, any specific things that you want to work on. You can filter it through there, and you can find therapists anywhere. Psychologytoday.com, and you can send them an email directly through the website.
Just to piggyback on that, Lisa, I think there are going to be some folks that regardless of where they look, they're very mistrustful, and at times for good reason. Unfortunately, our field hasn't always done right by people. There are a lot of us that are really good clinicians, and we want people to know that. Come see us, right? But I think the more you and other people in the community get to trust people like us and other providers in the community, they're going to really value that word of mouth. I know, for example, at Care and Outpatient, I mentioned just substance use, but we also treat trauma. We treat gambling, and we treat other mental health issues, depression, anxiety. We also have a special group right now for people who've experienced racialized trauma. So it's run by people of color for people of color. But I think the biggest obstacle because of the stigma is really trying to tease out, can I trust this place? So the more people you connect with and you can kind of vouch for them, I think the better.
Your question on, how the legislation and how we can make change as people sitting out here is a really, really good one, and one that we answer quite frequently. It's interesting. I brought a handout along with me. There's about 15 bills on here relative to what we could do in terms of guns. And a lot of it boils down to the fact there's just too many weapons available to the wrong people. There's simply too much of it out there. We don't know who has them. We have concerns certainly about individuals who may harm themselves or others, of course, because of their mental status, and also about children as well having access to guns. So it talks about things like safe storage and other kinds of issues. You got to get yourself informed in terms of what bills are out there and what kind of action you can specifically take. And I was thinking about this as I was sitting here. Most of you, either Johanny is your state representative or I'm your senator. Hey, we're on board. We're ready to do, we would pass it in a heartbeat if we were able to do it. In the House, they have been able to pass some bills. And they come over to the Senate and they call the people who passed them traitors. They call them traitors because they are so involved with the gun culture and afraid to address it here in Pennsylvania because they fear their own political lives, I guess, in terms of making a difference there. But I will ask you I'm going to give you a couple of organizations that are active locally and on the state level as well. Every Town for Gun Safety, have you heard of them before? Their website is everytown.org, really easy. Get involved with some of these organizations, then you'll know what's happening on the state level and when you need to jump in and call somebody, not us necessarily, but certainly us, you're always welcome to, but others that could possibly make a difference. Another one is Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety. I see some of you nodding your heads, so you might know what they are. The website is momsdemandaction.org. Really simple. But it's pretty hard. We don't always read or even, hear on the local media what bills have been moving forward. We just don't, the news just doesn't get out there, especially if you're not reading the newspaper, either online or in a print version. So it makes it difficult for you to know. So you're going to have to start looking online for some of that information. Those are two good places to go. It is so true. Nothing is going to happen until people demand that there's change, and they're consistent about it. Not just go to Harrisburg one day, stand on the steps and carry signs, and then you go home, and that's your action. Got to be more than that, folks. And you wouldn't be here if that wasn't where your heart is in terms of wanting to make a difference. So we can do it. We can do it. We just need you to be at it and consistent with it.
And thank you for the question. Thank you, Senator. And if I may add, so my office, my team, we actually prepared some handouts, right? So there's bills that we already passed in the House, and unfortunately, they haven't gone anywhere in the Senate. But in addition, we have pictures, images, contacts of all the senators you need to be calling to push these bills, right? You know, and I'll share this. I mean, I was in Harrisburg in session this week, and just yesterday we passed Representative Cephas's bill on banning ghost gun parts, and it was an intense debate. Intense. So I urge you and I encourage you, if you go onto pahouse.gov, you can subscribe. You can literally be receiving like the memos that are being circulated. You can tune in and watch. You can watch us at work. You can watch the committees at work. And I wanted to share with you briefly like the process of bills, right? So obviously all the bills, they start out as the ideas, right? You know, the beauty of us in these positions, we listen to our constituents. We listen, we take notes, we have a research team. We're trying to, as a collective, find solutions, right? So an idea then becomes, it's a memo, then we introduce the bill, then we circulate and we get co-sponsors. It goes into a particular committee. There are 26 committees in the House. Then it gets voted out of committee. Then it goes onto the floor. And there's 203 of us on the floor, right? We pass it there, majority passes it there. Then it goes to the Senate, to their committee and their floor, right? And then from there goes, it doesn't get out of committee. It doesn't, well, unfortunately, a lot of our bills are not getting out of committee. However, the last step, though, if it does pass out of the Senate, it goes to the governor, right? And then he's the one, right, then that bill becomes a law. So there's multiple steps. Things take a long time. It's a process. It's one of the worst things I don't like about my job, right? Because I'm very impatient. But nonetheless, those are the processes in place. But as a collective, we can change that. And we can urge our senators. And you know which ones I'm talking about, because the ones that are here with community and for community are right here. So please make sure you either see Jahaira or any member of my staff. And I'm telling you, we even got images. You can call, email, show up. No, oh no, we put on here the exact senators you need to reach out to, okay? I did want to, yes, Roz. I was going to ask you a question, but we'll pass down the mic.
Just some additional information. Ceasefire PA is another organization you can reach out to. Tell the Judiciary Chair Lisa Parker, Majority Leader Joe Pittman, Pennsylvanians cannot wait not one more day for action. So, this time, since the PA sent bipartisan life-saving gun safety bills to the State Judiciary Committee, it has been 312 days, 57 minutes, and 1 second. Nothing has moved. So contact them, hit them up and say, yo, what y'all doing? It's that simple.
Edna?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you everyone for being here tonight on this such important topic. Respectfully, I'd like to say thank you to our senator, our representatives, our chief of police, and everyone here on staff. Most of y'all are my friends and family. I really want to say, state level is great, right? But we have at least a dozen of organizations in this room, and people that I know who are on the ground, in the trenches, doing the work. And what I'm pleading with everyone, I've been pleading for the past decade, and those that know me know I've been pleading, the silos, right? That chief, you're here 2 months, and I'm so grateful that you have this background, that you welcome us with open arms to help. Yes. That you get us together in one. Tirelessly tackled this agenda, but without the help of government and the police and us working all together, yes, as one unit under your leadership, yes, can we get the work done? So with the initiative that you're doing in May, I would mention every organization in here, you know I love y'all, Realty, everyone here, Camelback. We have a coalition under the Not One More program, which is funded by PCCD. And there's about 44 organizations on there that we're here to help. With that being said, thank you so much. And I love you.
And thank you, Edna, because we do have a very strong grassroots movement here in our city. And you're right, I mean, I remember, gosh, I think in '08, a lot of the work and the hands-on and on the ground. Salita, I know you wanted to say something, so please rise up.
I have a couple questions, and I don't want to take up too much time, sorry. But I would like to know, because if you know what is going on in Berks County, you know the majority of our homicide crime rate is with our youth. And I know you say, you know, you can go to the mental hospital, or, you know, you can go to, you know, the website that you gave. But I'm challenging you to take in consideration the very same thing you just did with us as adults, because we need that, is the very same thing our children need in the schools, because it's their friends that are being murdered. They're witnessing these things. And we have had a rise in crime rate. We've been going through this for almost 4 years now, and there's been no change really. So, you know, excuse me and no disrespect, I thank everybody for this opportunity. I am so tired of town hall meetings with no solution at all. So I'm begging, you know, I know there's social workers in schools, but they are overrated, they are underpaid, and they're tired. We need to start going to these schools, like in Wilson School District. Something happens to anybody, they offer these children support and not dismiss them and think that they're gonna come back to school the next day and act regular. Half the things these children go through, we as adults can't even comprehend, but yet and still, we're still requesting and requiring them to go to school and comprehend and process what just happened and still listen to a teacher. That's impossible. Our children are a reflection of what we provide. So we need to stop putting so much expectation and so much responsibility on little kids when they are a product of what we provide to them. Simple. My second question is, it's beautiful that you're reaching out, Chief, I never met you, but it's beautiful that you're reaching out to schools and stuff, but are you reaching out to our ex-offenders that have success stories, that have been doing the work, that have not been getting in trouble, because they're really going to be your superheroes to help combat this gun violence. My nonprofit is the Real Deal 610, our returning citizen director, 23 years on death row, got pardoned and was running Montgomery County Courthouse. He has his own LLC. He has done abundant guest speaking. We have several convicted felons that have harsh crimes. And all they want to do is get an opportunity to do better. But if we continuously keep them in the dirt and not give them an opportunity to grow, what do you expect them to do? They're not going to grow. And more groundwork than a lot of people that you're looking at. We risk our life every day, and some with no funding and some with a lot. But we're doing just as much work as you as officers are doing and risking our life for the very same things that you want. Reach out to your ex-offenders that have success stories, because they're going to show you some stuff that's going to blow your mind. Stop being so judgmental with somebody with a record. That's right. They are the new superheroes if you give them the opportunity. My last question is this: what are we doing to empower our police with experience on mental health? We just had a situation where a man is murdered from mental health, and he shouldn't have and didn't have to be. And not to get into that, but we need to start empowering our police to have as much information as possible, because their job is not easy. Their job is not easy. So when they're coming in contact with somebody that's suffering from major depression and PTSD, they don't know how to react to that. They're going to do what they need to do. But in the same aspect, a person that is suffering from depression should not be murdered. They need to have help. So are we going to empower our police department and educate them on what are the signs of mental health, so that their life isn't in jeopardy and neither is the other person that's suffering from depression or mental health?
Those are all good points. They're all good points, and obviously, you know, yes, you know, we do train our officers in CIT training. CIT training is about a 40-hour course that the officers go through. Every year, we have what's called update training, and so they go through that every year. They're going through some type of training that the state is requiring for them to take. So they are trained in all those aspects of it. And the ex-offender thing, I like that. That's something that we wanted to do in Tampa. We never got to it, but that same idea is something that I would love to do here.
Was it Selena? Salida? Salida. Sorry, I have a hearing aid, so I'm struggling to hear too. The first part about the schools, I would say all that passion you have and other people in here have, please go to the schools and demand more. And I don't know what else to say because we actually have offered a lot to the schools. Outside of Karen having staff in the 13 school districts, at Karen Outpatient, I saw that the obstacles of teens, of treating our teens, and we treat 13 and up, of getting these kids into treatment was transportation, and sometimes it's just family schedules. Who can bring their kid after school when they're working and they're single parent or whatever the situation is. So we created a virtual group so that during the school day, these teens could still participate in therapy with us. We only had 4 schools sign a contract with us to do it. So we're trying to get in there and do things. I would say yes to so many more, but I need the schools to let us do it. And not just me, like any other provider. I'm not the end-all be-all provider in the county, but we need them to let us because we can, they will sign a contract or not. So, and the last part that the chief spoke to with we need to be empowering the police to be able to respond appropriately. It kills me every time I see someone make a call for their loved one who's having a mental health crisis, depression, and they, get shot. Any trainings you want to do, I'm there for you.
Just to speak to that, just to speak to the school piece, Dr. Murray, the superintendent for the Reading School District, she's been great. She has reached out, and there is a regular communication with, if there's something that happens on the night before, juvenile is involved, our SROs do contact Carl Britt and their guys, because not just, obviously we're interested in the intel piece, but there's fallout from that, but they want to be ready for the students in school. So there is a communication, but she's managing a school of 5,000 students, and she's short on personnel also, and it's not an excuse, it's one of our obstacles. It's the reality. We do recognize that. We've talked about it. We're working that, but you're 100% right. There are incidents that happen. Wilson's got a lot more money, a lot more people, so they get a lot more services like that. And a lot less kids. So, but you're right. And just to say that piece, we know that happens, and Dr. Murray's been great about working together to get that happen. We're working that.
Good, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
I just wanted to add too, I forgot to mention that we're adding 2 social workers. We're budgeted for 2 social workers. We're in the process right now of adding them in as well. And they're going to be also doing some of the CIT training that I talked to you about, and also working with the schools and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to add that.
And if I also may add, unfortunately, we do have a shortage in a lot of these areas. So if you're seeking a career change, because we need more teachers, we need more mental health providers, we need more police, we need more social workers. And overall, what doesn't require an education or a degree, we need more caring individuals. We have to go back to basics, where we looked out for one another in our blocks, in our neighborhoods. And we do have an abundance of resources right here in our communities, and a lot of organizations and groups that are really trying. I think we need to have a more coordinated effort and figure out who can kind of lead the way to bring all these players or partners together, so that then we can take the city and maybe divide it up, do a quadrant, so, and include churches. Right? Because everyone, either you live in a house, an apartment, you go to a church, you go to a bodega, everyone has a role to play. So I saw a hand up over here, and then a hand up from a high school student over there. I'm going to go here first and then back to you, okay?
Yeah, I just want to, in conjunction with my sister over here, she's absolutely right in terms of having more of the government part of the help that we need. You guys have a seat where you have hands to reach out. So you have access to touching other groups of people that are in high seats, right? And you guys are the ones that make things happen. Okay, we the little people, we hope you guys get to where you want to get, right? And then once you get there, right, we're expecting a kickback of what you're supposed to be doing for us, which is working harder, right? And allowing us to see the changes that you guys put in seats to provide for us, right? In terms of what she was saying, that you guys should move a little more, I have to agree with her. I have to agree with her. In terms of the situation with schools, right? I believe that when you made a statement that you said we have to revert back to the old days, right?
Back to basics.
Back to basics. Classrooms today are overcrowded, right? They're overcrowded. We need to go back to basics. Okay? You cannot move forward if you're not following the protocols and the laws, right? So now you have a classroom that's got 30, 35 kids or maybe more, right? With X amount of numbers of teachers. We gotta do better than that.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes. Could you stand up, beloved, so everybody can hear you? Because you have a powerful voice. We want to hear it.
My name is Beloved Pear. I'm from the Relevant Center Masters, where basically what we do is support teams from team perspective. I'm president for age group 13 to 15. And I just want to go off what my mother said about the schools. I know for basically it's for the officers. For the crime, a lot of the crime is for teens. Like I've seen kids I went to school with are now going to jail for attempted homicide and all this and that. And I wanted to also ask a question for the mental health specialist, how when I went to Reading School District, how I would go every day, I have friends crying to me, crying about how they're struggling, how they have anxiety, how they have depression. I had to call my mom so she can at least try and calm me down. So I wanted to know, instead of paying attention, but like, could our focus mainly be on that? Because a lot of the crime now today is all teens. You don't see really, I mean you do see, but a lot of the teens in Reading is just, you'll see a 15-year-old kill his dad, or 15-year-old kill a 16-year-old girl just because of argument. So I wonder if our main focus would be on that, because a lot of these kids are just killing adults now. Now it's not adults, it's kids, and then adults.
Diana, you cut me off when I wasn't even finished.
I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. I thought you were done. My bad.
It wasn't nice, just to let you know.
I'm sorry. I hope you can forgive me.
I do forgive you.
I love you too.
But I just wanted to stress the fact that in New York, right? In New York, some of the methods that they use to help with the police department and crime, right? They use the program called auxiliary police officers. I don't know if you guys heard of it or familiar with it.
She explained it.
That's
where her son did.
Program. That was when my son was in a police department, you know.
That's a youth program. We used to have an auxiliary, like almost like part-time police officers that would have different responsibilities, maybe a little less responsibilities. That's what you're referring to?
Yeah, I used to be an auxiliary police officer in New York City because I also was a victim of gun violence. Okay? Not to say the least, but I know the trauma that a lot of you guys on that panel is going through. Okay? It happened to me also. But moving forward, And we do need more than what we are looking at right now. Right? This panel right here, we need more than those panels here. We need more than that. And you guys, like I said, you guys have the power to reach for that. And for that, I hold you accountable.
Just
We
to-
need you too. Yeah. We
gonna
need
say,
you
you
too.
have the power.
Yeah.
Just to address the auxiliary police thing really quick, I would love to have the ability to do that, but I mean, I'm at 140 and I can have 175. I need 30 more regular police officers. If I get filled to the brim, then maybe we can entertain auxiliary, but like, at this point, we need full-time police officers. That's the goal to get there. Back to your point, young lady. I can't imagine, my growing up was not the same as your high school experience. Can't imagine that. We were worried about what the game was going to be Friday night, and if this girl was going to say yes or no to me when I was going to ask her out. The drama that I had to deal with is not the drama you have to deal with. And I don't think my generation, especially those of us that are not from the city, we don't understand that or appreciate that. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have an answer. You're dealing with things that generations before didn't. I will tell you this. Moments like that is where greatness is born. And people like you are going to grow up to be great leaders. Because your peers will look to you. Because on top of studies and relationships, which that alone is stressful enough, now you have violence, and unsensible violence, right? That doesn't make sense. It's people are going to look to you for solace, for peace, for strength, and answers in ways that we are not thinking of yet. You know, we're just trying to keep ourselves together and come up with something. You are the future, young lady. I'm glad that you're here as a part of this. You will be a part of the solution. To that point, real quick, I just want to add, Dr. Claire had texted me earlier. Part of that is, it's not just here, it's all the extracurricular stuff too. Like when kids are involved in sports or outside activities, like what she has tonight at the Rec and the Olives Club. There are so many extra things just to get involved. You don't have to be a mental health specialist to care about a kid. You might know how to shoot a basketball, or in my case, play football or baseball or whatever. That interaction on something that just takes a kid out of real life for a minute. Hey, let's go to the court, let's go to the field, let's do, just to get you out of the drama at home. Getting involved in those little things makes a world of difference. How many NFL professional athletes you see, hey, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, obviously, usually it's a mom, and a coach who cared and saw something. Those little things are all the extras that we could do too. I don't know if you want to address the mental health question that she had earlier.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I've been standing here for a while and knowledge, and I thought that part of this was a give and take. The question I have for all of us in this room is the definition of restoration. Restorative parenting, restorative justice, restorative equity. We are experiencing a time. Oh, by the way, I'm Pastor Evelyn Morrison, and I'm the community activist. This is my hometown, born, raised, educated here. And I have been a part of everything that is. And I feel now as an elder that it is my duty to be able to raise our communities collectively so that we can heal collectively. We've been injured and traumatized, every single one of us, 100%, whether it's in direct trauma or vicarious trauma that we've affected by hearing somebody else's story or a family member having a crisis. We're all in this together. When I talk about restorative, it means that the first thing we want to do to each other is listen without judgment. And a lot of times we want to talk down to our children because they don't have the experience. Or we want to dismiss our elders because they're no longer energized. Or we want to make this an issue for our legislators, or it has to be a police issue. No one is solely responsible for our humanity and society. I want you all to look up the word restoration, restorative. And I hope that it rings home to you, because as a male, a female, or other description, as a parent, as a loved one, we all need to be restoring our relationships. There is times when you have to confront your person who injured you. And the key is forgiveness. That's our highest human characteristic. And if we can't get to the forgiveness, then we're not going to heal. Our community will still be bleeding and bleeding profusely. It's time that we examine ourselves and see what it is that we bring to the table, because we're all God's gift to this space and time. And He has divinely designed in us a special gift for this season, for this now. And we have to thank God for those that came before us and loved us or didn't love us so that we could be who we are now. And we have to prepare ourselves for the next 10 generations that we will never know. But what we do in this now time, and that's what we have to be mentally aware now. We can't hold grudges from the past. We can't project ourselves in the future. That doesn't belong to us. But what we can do now is listen to one another, feel each other's pain with empathy, and be able to move this out in a collective direction that all of us heal. Because we're all hurting. I don't care how good we look or how intelligent we sound. We're hurting people. As babies, we were traumatized and abused and neglected and abandoned. And we're still carrying that in our today's patterns of relationship. A woman is being abused. She has every right to call for help. And everyone who hears her voice should be right there helping her. But more importantly, you have to deal with that person who's injuring her, because he has problems or she has problems. So we can't look at this as one side. We have to look at both sides and then the truth. And we have to build on this together. Our community needs more dialogue and more healing and more loving. And we have to, from our individual spaces, be that credible messenger, that person who's going to come with that solution in your space and time. You can't blame somebody else or depend on somebody else. It has to come from us individually. Now, I should be across the street in our Holy Week service as a High Baptist, but this was more important to me because all of you are important to me. As we look around and see, everybody has their narrative, their story, and until you start telling it and getting that pain out in the open, you're going to be dealing with it. How many in here been raped? You ain't going to tell. How many been molested? You ain't going to tell. How many fathers and mothers abused you? You're not going to tell that story. But that's the story that keeps you enslaved to the behaviors and patterns that you have now. And the behaviors that our children model are coming from us. They're behaving this way because they see us behaving this way. So now it's time to be restorative and bring that truth home. That's all I have to say. I love all of you. And I'm willing to work with all of you. I am working with most of you. And I look forward to every single one of you being a credible messenger. Tell that story that you never told nobody before, when you were molested or raped or somebody abused you. Tell that story and get set free from it, so you can be more in the present and more ready to do business with your spirit.
We love you too.
I love you. Thank you.
I have a question to the lady in the pink. She talked about contracts for the schools. What do you mean by contract? And fulfilling the contract or opening up your contract?
I just meant providers that want to offer services to the schools. There have to be contracts to allow us in. Some schools.
No, I got you.
Got it.
Second question to the lady who took us through a therapy session, so to speak, the meditation. Is there something you can do as far as a more informative, more in depth in regards to letting go, like with the weight, as part of the restoration process?
Amen.
In conjunction with maybe BCTV, where the children of our city could have a homework project based on something network or podcast or you understand what I'm trying to say?
Definitely, yeah. Trying to get into all of that. I mean, I would love to collaborate with a lot of organizations here now. I currently run with Shaika a parent circle every first Wednesday of the month. That's run by the RISE program. So that's the young lady that just spoke about the us and how we have to check ourselves and not pass those things down to our children. You know, we try to touch on all those things in our parent circle. Also at my practice, I'm trying to build groups. I had a positive experience myself personally with groups, and I think groups build that community. And I also would love to collaborate with Beloved and use her organization as well to kind of bring those teens. We just finished an anxiety group for adolescents, and we're working on developing a self-esteem group also.
And also to add to that, I get together with parents that have gone through obviously what I go through. Aside of the parent circle that I do every month with Hillary, I do come out, meet with parents that lose their children or whatnot, and just kind of walk them through the process, because there is no instruction. There is good days, there's bad days, and there's just terrible days. So sometimes just having someone there that you can either talk to, look at, just cry with, I'm here. Wherever, I'm all over social media, take my information and reach out.
So for the sake of time, I saw another hand over here. We'll take the last one. And before we wrap up, we'll take the last question. And then I do want to ask the panels for everyone to one message. Right, but we'll take you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carmela Boykins. I'm representing a couple people, but I won't go into that. I'm a Reading resident, born and raised. I was able to leave and come back, and see a lot of different places, a lot of different things. What I do see in Reading, Pennsylvania is a disconnection. I like what you said to the young lady about, I'm getting emotional there. I like what you said to the young lady. You were honest with her and you said, I don't know. That's really difficult. It's difficult for me to hear you say, I don't know what to tell you. Because when I grew up in Reading, policemen didn't know what to tell us. You know, we worried about a bully club, not a gun. I live in one of the most crime-ridden neighborhoods in Berks County. I see action every single day. My godson was shot in his head while babysitting by accident, mistaken identity. My cousin was laid in the back of Burger King with a gunshot wound. Now this weekend, I went through my cousin being shot by a police officer. I was humble enough and appreciative enough that they called us and let us sit with them, the family. And what I seen was horrible, because when I went home and I couldn't sleep for 2 days, I started Googling. And when I Googled, what is the aftermath of a gun violence when it's an officer-involved shooting? And there was a booklet that they gave to the chief of police. It was 332 pages of what a police officer goes through after he has been involved. It wasn't like what I thought it was going to be like. He gets his gun taken away. He also gets a temporary gun. It wasn't like on the scene they have automatically psychologist, lawyer, ambulance, five or six different things that's mandatory that is at that scene once an officer is involved in a shooting. They don't have that for the families of the deceased that's laying on the ground, even though they don't know what the story is, because at the time when they shot my cousin, nobody knew what the story was. But Channel 69 News had a story. Channel 69 News had a story based on what? Cameras? What people told them? What was the gist of their reporting? That was horrible for my family. Horrible. So I'm standing here today because, yes, I ran the POW Center with Reverend McCracken for 13 years. I'm a member of South Penn community where we're doing Reading Arms Playground. All that. But if people are afraid of the police, how are they going to not be afraid of a regular citizen? I think that the disconnection here has gotten too broad. I don't know what it's going to take. When the police come in my neighborhood, and I'm in the heart, and they get out their car, and I say to them, is everything okay? They will do like this. They give you no information. I've sat on our front porch and watched them chase a criminal up the street with their guns blazed that ran straight past my mother and my uncle, who were in their 80s, straight through their house, and allowed this guy to jump out their window, and they're still chasing him. The disconnect between community and policing has to stop. When I was raised, we were raised with that slogan that's on their car, to protect and to serve. I'm sorry, but in my community, I don't feel protected. In my community, I don't feel like they're serving. My son did something wrong. He got a warrant. He was arrested. Since the day that he was released, he has been stopped walking into his apartment 3 times. Now, what if one of those times it wouldn't have went so well? You know, you talk about the aftermath of violence. Everybody gets hurt. Like you said, everyone gets hurt. But where's the accountability? You know, I don't want to throw blame, shade, nothing, because the whole situation probably was way out of hand anyway. But I plead with this community. I'm glad that you have the 2 psychologists coming on board. But if you got 150 officers, you can have 40 mental health staff people. You could probably have as many as you want. Get them some money, G. Get them some money. Get them the staff, because I'm telling you, most of the things that happen in Reading happen because of mental health. Happen because somebody hurt you. Somebody hurt you, and you know it. It's in your training. It's in the police officer's training. But one thing that's not in their training, is when and where to use your gun. Every officer is given the right to say when it's time for them to shoot. But they're also trained that they have to be facing death. They have to be afraid that they are going to die. And in my cousin's case, that wasn't the case. So it's hard for my family right now. It's very hard. Most of them left the room. I'm sorry that they you know, because they probably couldn't handle all this. But in our community, from 3 o'clock in the morning, from 3:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning, there was absolutely no remorse. They put them in a room with a videotape camera there. When the coroner came in to talk to them, he explained to them that he works individually, separate from the department, but you came in with 4 detectives taking notes. Twice, the wife almost passed out. When I asked them to please get somebody to just take her blood pressure, they said she has to go all the way down to the emergency room. Now, I was a volunteer. I love Tampa. I lived and worked in Tampa. One of the things that we do, we've had a rapid response team. Rapid response team just in our community. When things happened in our community, there was no such thing as we don't know where to go. We don't know who to call. You even had 211. Nobody even mentioned 211. Not one person here mentioned 211. You know why? I don't know if it's a joke. I don't know if you just don't know about it. But these are people that are getting paid. These are people that money is coming out of taxpayer dollars to pay probably 20% of the people in this room. Where's the accountability? What do we get? Do we just stay in the ghetto and be judged because we decide to stay in our family homesteads? Are we penalized and we can't sit outside because a police officer or somebody might just tell us to go inside? Get out the way? No. I don't have all the answers for you, but the one thing that I would want you to do is please bridge that gap between police and people, all ages of people. I remember Tyson Shane and the cops scared us to death from drugs. That's why we didn't do drugs. They scared us. You know, show these kids what happens when a bullet hits somebody's chest. We had the Young Junior Tourier Sportsman Club, an African-American club that took kids once a month to go shoot at the range. You don't hear about that in Berks County, but go down to Boyertown, Fleetwood, and they're raffling off rifles. Come on. It's not fair. Something.
And thank you for sharing. I want to pass it to Roz, like one last word message. If we go down the line quickly before we wrap up.
I talk about this a lot from a documentary that I'm a part of called Trigger. So it's hope. And I think that once we restore that hope and we find that hope, especially, I'm talking about personally for me because I've been affected with many different layers of trauma. And I say to you from my experience that once you find your hope, you hold it and you hold it with a vengeance and don't let go. And pass that love on to people who are experiencing that deep, deep-rooted pain and try to, again, restore it and hold on to that hope.
I just want to express how important it is to, if you're angry, talk to somebody. If you're hurt, talk to somebody. Because if you're angry, you may end up hurting somebody. If you don't seek the help that you need when you're hurting, you may hurt yourself or as well as somebody else. So the help is out there. I would say just go try to find it in any way you can.
Mi mensaje, my message to you, the way I've been hurt myself, I went to refuse in the Bible, and the Bible works. I fit in the corner, and then, because my losses, no human words make me healing my pain. But when I go to the hope and faith that we have, that's when I get strength.
So my message is for the parents in the room. Keep those lines of communication open with your children. You do not have to be perfect. Kids do not need you to be perfect. Be vulnerable with them. Talk to them about how you feel. You do not need to be the strongest person. Just by you showing emotion, that's making you strong.
There's a quote that I've seen floating around LinkedIn. It says, if you don't heal your wounds, you'll bleed on the people who didn't cut you. As clinicians, we can't change the past. We can help you change your relationship with the past. We are all wounded in relationships. We need to heal in relationships.
For me, I just want to put a name out there, Sir Robert Peel. He is the father of modern policing in 1829. He had 9 principles of policing that still hold true today. And one of the most important ones to me is that we are the community and you are the police. So we are one. We are one, and community engagement is actually one of my 3 pillars that when I came here to Reading that I wanted to improve upon, like you were talking about. And that is something that we're going to continue to improve upon every single day, and is the reason why we're here, why I'm here. I went to the first town hall meeting when I was applying, and I hadn't gotten the job yet, but that was one of the things that the folks in that meeting wanted to see the police chief out there in the community, and they wanted to see the officers also engage. And so that's my words, that I commit to you that I'm going to continue to do these type of things and be engaged with you.
Just to kind of piggyback on that and talking about relationships, Dolores, how many times have we talked about life is about relationships, and it's not just professionally, but and among family, community. Life is about relationships, and we have to ask questions. We have to get involved, and that's what it's about. You can't stand on the sidelines and complain. You've got to get involved and find your little way to how you make something different, even if it's one little kid.
All good thoughts. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot tonight, just listening. And I appreciate every one of you that came here tonight, and those of you that spoke, that had the courage to stand up and speak. I think you needed to. I think we all have something to say and need the opportunity to do that. First, I'd like to thank our panelists, our survivors, the powerful stories that we heard. Thank you. Thank you to our counselors who offered us real strategies, real time, in what we can do, and help us to understand a little bit better about what's going on with all of us. The truth of the matter is, whether you think, I've learned this, right? If you think that you haven't been hurt in some way by the violence that goes on in our community, even if it wasn't in your house and your kid, you have been hurt. We have been hurt. All of us suffer in some way if we're not feeling good in our community, and that's something we all have to work on. And our law enforcement, it's brave to come, because it's not always easy, and you don't know what people are going to say. So thank you for doing that. To my colleague, Johanny, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you did. And to Sheikha, oh my God, I admire you so much. You put together an amazing panel tonight. Thank you for what you have done. And I'll just say one last thing. We need to do this with teenagers, with the kids. We need to do that and hear their voices. And I pledge to you, we'll work on that.
Senator Sharp, may I say something?
Yes.
We have a Berks Youth Summit coming up April 25th.
I saw that, Edna.
At Penn State Berks. I welcome you all. I'll send out an email. I encourage you all to please review this panel April 25th.
Thank you.
So I want to take this time to thank you, Senator, for always saying